Good afternoon. I'm John Hutchings, and I'm one of 3 Thurston County Commissioners. And it's my pleasure to be here back in my alma mater. And as we move along, did anybody, do you have the agenda or not, or no? No, okay, good. Then I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to jaw-jack here for a few minutes and introduce our panelists and give you some basic information. And then each panel member will introduce themselves. And then we're going to get into a discussion. I'll throw a question at them, general information for everybody. And then we will open it up for questions from the audience. And we'll have microphones up, and you can come up and ask them just about anything you want regarding water. And so I'm glad we have students here that are interested in this topic. It's vitally important, not only with the Hearst decision and with all the water events that we're dealing with globally. And the governor just, it was in the paper yesterday, just declared a drought in the western Washington, for most of Washington state, in fact. So this is vitally important, especially since 60% of our own, if you look globally at a map and to see where people live, since we're all born of water, we're all attracted to water, and most populations live on the coast or live around waters or live around lakes and such, which is interesting. And about 60% of our bodies are made up of water. And our lungs, about 83%, and our brain and heart, I think it's about 70 or something like that, 73% water. But as an elected official, I'm 60% water, and I don't know what the other 40% is. I'll let you decide that. But thank you all for being here. Some of the things that we do as the Board of County Commissioners to reach out to the community is we take our BOCC, or the Board of County Commissioners, meeting out on the road. A couple weeks ago, we were down in Rochester and packed the stadium, the middle school stadium, and had an actual formal meeting. We did that in the evening, I think 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, so people can come out and participate. We're going to do the same thing between now and the end of the year in Tenino and in Yelm. And it's a real interaction with the community, especially for the people in the South County that don't get a chance to come up and participate. And it's the time for the community to really address their government. Come in and talk with us. We don't talk to them. Just listen. Let us have it. And sometimes they take us up on that. And we also, what I've done is what's called a guac talk. And I would go down and have a community outreach in Tenino at Don Juan's Mexican restaurant, and I paid for all the guacamole, and people came. If you wanted a lunch or a beer, whatever, that's on you, but at lunchtime I would supply the guacamole. We call it guac talk, and you can talk to me, ask questions, give your input. Did the same thing in downtown Olympia at Pepper's, guac talk, and lo and behold, I thought people were going to come in and just eat and run, but they stayed, which was very nice, and I appreciate that. I also did what's a program called Behind the Bar at Starbucks. They taught me how to make a drink, and then I actually interacted with customers, handing drinks to the customers, and it was a lot of fun. It gives me a different perspective. I've been in public service for over 35 years, and I love it, but it's a different perspective when you're doing it that way. And so that was a lot of fun. We attend, as commissioners, we attend fundraisers all the time, community events, Rotary, Lions Club, Kiwanis. We do presentations. Many of us belong to these various groups. Serve food at the Senior Center and in downtown Olympia. We do an Operation Santa every year. We're a very needy family in the county that's deserving, not that the others aren't deserving, but that really needs the help at Santa at Christmas time. We all gather and buy a bunch of presents, and we go down and deliver presents to the family. And it's a very meaningful and very touching thing that we do. We do we do animal services drive, where people from the county bring in blankets, leashes, extra food, whatever, and we donate that to animal services. And right now we're doing peanut butter jelly drive, and it's a competition throughout the county. All county employees can participate, bring in jelly and peanut butter, and then at the end of the fun, at the drive rather, and then we donate all that to the food bank. Because most of our kids, they live on peanut butter and jelly, and it's fairly inexpensive to feed them that way. And then the other bank that was with the YWCA, that is for women, for sanitary needs and such. They can come in and get little bottles of shampoo and and fill up these things with soap and whatever they need. And now that's being administered by the food bank. So there's a little transition there. But we've done fundraising the last couple of years with the other bank, with the YWCA. Those are just some of the things that we do as a county commission in outreach to our community and working with the community and helping the community, because all three of us, myself, Ty Menser, and Gary Edwards, take public service very seriously. And it's because of you folks, many of you perhaps, that we're even here. And it's your government, and that's our frame of mind. So talking about county operations, and we have county opportunities. At the table as you came in, where all the cookies are, is a list of the boards, advisory boards, commissions, councils, and committees that the county has that is staffed by volunteers in various things from A to B, or A to Z rather. The Area Agency on Aging, all the way to Disabilities Board, Historic Commission, Lodging Tax, all the way to Water Conservancy, Veterans Advisory Board. The whole list is out there, along with applications. Are there applications out there too, Megan? Okay, yes, applications are out there as well. If you're interested, pick up the list. You can see what the options are. And we always have people falling off the board because it's voluntary. So we can't mandate they be there, but they term out or they decide I'm going to move on and do something different. We're always replacing members of the community on these boards. So please take advantage of that as well. It's your way or an opportunity for you to get back involved or get involved with your community. We have non-paid internships. We have county employment opportunities as well. Full-time, seasonal, and now we're coming up to the season where we pick up folks, and temporary employment, as well as we have paid internships. So go onto the county website, look this stuff up, and avail yourself of the opportunity to do that if you so wish. And so why does water matter? That's why we're here. Why does water matter? I have a real close friend who told me just a couple weeks ago, he said, I can't afford to pay my water bill. So I went to the store and I got him a card, a greeting card, and it said, get well soon. Get it? Come on, get well. Okay, thank you very much for that. Thurston County, you can use that if you wish. Thurston County has 118.22 marine coastal miles. Most of them are healthy. Some are a bit dodgy or they're struggling, and we're doing what we can to address that. We have approximately 175 miles of major rivers. Let me ask you this. Does anybody have any idea how many lakes we have that are larger than 5 acres? Anybody, a guess? 140 in Thurston County, your capital county. 140 major lakes larger than 5 acres. We have aquifers, we have wetlands as well. And so we're constantly looking at codes and ordinances regarding setbacks and the shore management plan and such. It's constant. Water is a huge part of what we are in Thurston County, and we want to make sure that our water is safe, especially for everybody, of course, but especially our kids, clean and available for generations to come. And that includes my children, my grandchildren as well, and of course their grandchildren, or their children and children. So what I'd like to do is introduce your panel here and give them an opportunity to use the mic and explain about who they are and perhaps what they do. On my far right, which is your far left, is Jennifer Walker, and she is the Director of Public Works. And she will tell you how diverse Public Works really is. In the center is Shelley Slaughter, and she's the Director of Public Health and Social Services, which includes environmental health. And then we have, right here, we have Josh Cummings, the Director of what we call CPED, but it's a Community Planning and Economic Development, is permitting and beyond. It's a lot of stuff, and these ladies and gentlemen here are just busy all the time. And so now I'm going to turn it over, and who would like to go first and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
I'll start. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Walker, as Commissioner Hutchings said. I have been with the county for just about 18 months now. The Public Works Department is made up of about 200 employees, and we do a wide variety, provide a wide variety of services to the community. We are responsible for managing the transportation system, so we have a little over 1,000 centerline miles of road, 118 bridges. We also are responsible for providing water and sewer to about 800 customers. We manage the parks properties and the about 47 miles of trail. We also take care of the solid waste facility, the transfer station that's in Lacey, and 2 drop box facilities down in Rochester and Rainier. We process about 220,000 tons of waste at the transfer station up in Lacey. We are also manage the noxious weeds program in 2 lake management districts. And just at the beginning of this year, we had the technical services unit and the operation and maintenance for stormwater transfer into public works. So we have an annual budget of about $82 million. We are responsible for and take it very seriously the infrastructure of Thurston County. That's just in a nutshell, I guess.
Now, before you begin, Shelley, are you going to go next? This is way cool. I thought, what's that? What do they flash? That's way cool. That's really great. Oh. And just in case you didn't know,
all my words are getting
everything. This is being recorded, audio and come on, visually or audio, all that stuff is being recorded. Just want to let you know. Go ahead, Shelley. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and it's really great to be here today. I myself attended Evergreen, and I live just down the road and run through the campus every day, so it's really great to be here and to talk about water with you and also to share a little bit about our department. So at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, our mission is working together to achieve the highest level of health and well-being for every single person in our community. We have about a sound problem? Okay. Is that better? Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
So we have over 100 employees and about 50 different programs and services that join together to achieve our vision, which is thriving, hopeful, healthy communities where all people are safe and supported and our environment is protected. And we're going to have the chance throughout our time with you to talk a little bit more about what we do to protect our environment and improve water quality. But there are many things that we do every day to ensure that all people who live, work, and play in Thurston County live long, healthy lives. And we do that through lots of different ways. But every day we're working to make sure that the food that you eat, the water that you're drinking, even today, thank you for the water out front today, and the air that we're all breathing is safe and healthy. We track and investigate and provide education on the prevention of communicable and chronic diseases. So that's things like sexually transmitted diseases, measles has been a lot in the news, tuberculosis, heart disease, cancer. We're always tracking those, the health of those in our community and working to make sure that people can engage in behaviors to prevent those. And that includes things like vaccinations and just having education to make choices. We also develop plans to respond to emergencies and disasters. So if there's ever a bioterrorism or earthquake or flood, we're working every day with volunteers in our community to make sure that we're all prepared to respond. We also, one of the things that's really important to us is working to address health disparities in our community. Different people in our community have different opportunities for health. And so we're working together with our partners in the community, using our data that we have to ensure that we are addressing health equity and doing everything we can to work with our community on things that we call social determinants of health. And that means that people have access to safe and affordable housing, that they have educational opportunities, that they have jobs and money to buy what their families need, that they have food to eat, access to health care. And we don't do any of this alone. We work together with our partners. And we're also really focused on ensuring that kids today that Commissioner Hutchings was talking about have opportunities to live long, healthy lives, and we're doing everything that we can to ensure that that they're safe and healthy and protected from injuries and violence. And so we're working on lots of social and human services issues as well as public health. We're very proud that because of all of our efforts and collaborations that we have in the community, that this last year we were ranked the 5th healthiest county in the entire state of Washington, and we rank in the top 5 nationally. But while we're really happy that we're so lucky to live in such a healthy place and we have so many people that care about our environment and our kids in our community, we have a lot of work to do, and we'll talk a little bit more as we dive deeper into our water quality discussion.
Go for it.
Yep, please.
Hello, I'm Joshua Cummings. I'm the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, CPED. First off, I want to start by saying thank you to Chairman Hutchings for moderating today, and thank you to all you guys that came out. It's appreciated. I'm interested to know, by show of hands, who the Evergreen students are here that are in attendance. Okay, great. I just want to be really, our values in CPED are transparency, consistency, and accountability. And for transparency's sake, I want to let you guys know that me being here is a little self-serving. I am not the subject matter expert in any of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. I have amazing people that work on our team. And so my self-serving thing for being here is to inspire you to come work at the county and engage in public service. And so if you've got any questions that might help in that pursuit, let me know. From my perspective, there's opportunities in lots of places where you, after you've got your master's degree, where you can serve in places where other folks that you're working with may be philosophically aligned with you at all times. The county in public service is not that place, just as a heads up. And it's hard work and it's energizing, but it's where the good fight is happening and making policy and listening to different and desperate ideas and trying to find that balance for our community. So that's my opening pitch to you. Let me tell you about the organization that you're going to come work for, just in case you're interested. Community Planning and Economic Development has 5 main divisions. The first one is the permitting group. So it's the current planning, the folks that are helping people get their buildings built, get the permits for their land, have those discussions and move them through the process. The next is the long-range planning, community planning group. Those are the folks that are thinking into the future, working on the comprehensive plan, the shoreline master programs, those items. And then from there, we've got the Thurston County Fair, which is part of our organization, WSU Extension, and currently the Water Planning Group. And so we've got this 5 different kind of, it seems like different departments, but through them runs the vein of making sure that our community is well cared for and that we have the groundwork laid for economic development. The best social program is a good job. And so if we're able to continue to have jobs in our community where people can come to events like this because they have a whole life, from our perspective, graduation rates go up in high school, spousal abuse rates go down, alcoholism rates go down, having a good job, having clean water, having a good home. Those are the foundations to having a good community. So again, you're going to hear me say words like collaboration all day. I want to thank finally the folks here up on the panel with me. Our groups collaborate so well together that we're able to move forward some big issues that have been with our community for a long time. And I just want to also throw a big thank you out to the League of Women Voters, who's been hosting a panel this past couple of months on the water topics. I think that this issue needs more attention, and I think with these discussions are going to move that ball forward. So just a lot of thank yous. I think that there was a discussion about how many times I'm going to say collaboration tonight, so I'll try and keep it down a little bit. But all right. Thank you.
So now I've got about 6 questions to ask the panel to get basic information out, and then it'll take about half an hour or so, and then we'll open it up to anybody that has questions of the panel. The first one is, what is a program that has been implemented in your department that has made a significant impact on water quality, water quantity, and the way in which stormwater runoff is managed. And whoever wants to pick it up first, go.
You want me to do it? All right. So I'll start with water quantity. You guys probably have heard of the Hearst decision, which is now the the Streamflow Restoration Act. I'm looking at some of the staff in the audience looking for head nods. Okay, great, thank you. This is a big deal, and Thurston County has led the charge in getting ahead of the curve. And I'm going to look at my notes. On January 19th of 2018, the Washington State Legislature, after a lengthy court case that involved Whatcom County, created legislation that said that we need to do better at protecting our stream flow. They had two things that came out of that. The first was that counties shall immediately enact a fee for any new permit-exempt wells that are allowed in the county. And the second piece is a more longer term, that we look at the different watersheds that counties have and talk about and create a plan for restoring those stream flows. It turns out that Thurston County has 5 watersheds. We're covered by them, so we get 5 opportunities for success to help create those plans. Right off the bat, our staff went to work trying to figure out how to address this issue. January 19th, that's the clock starts ticking as the legislation is passed. Our team says, okay, we have to honor what the state has provided us and collect a fee. One of the things that we talk about in the permitting of CPED is we provide a service that people come in to get permits for something they don't want to get a permit for. They don't know how much it's going to cost, and they're not sure how long it's going to take. So it's not really an exciting adventure when you come into our organization in the first place. And then we have an opportunity to provide you a new fee in the state mandated well water fee. So trying to package all of that information in a way that's understandable and not frustrating was a difficult challenge. And our team got together and said, listen, this is what has to happen. This is the way we're going to communicate it. Ensure that the Board of County Commissioners is fully engaged in this topic. And we received great direction from the board. Ensure that the citizens are being served, ensure that you're paying attention to the legislation and doing it right, and do it as quickly as possible. So our community planning group worked with the folks that created the legislation and then partnered with our permitting group, the long-range planning and the current planning partnered. And the current planning communicated this information, so then immediately we were tracking the wells that were coming in and providing the fee and having it clearly understood that this is part of legislation that we have to enact. So that was January 19th, the starting date. We were able to push through a resolution, we were able to provide the information, and the board approved a resolution on February 13th. That's 25 days that our staff was able to take something that the legislature said you shall do, and we created the opportunity to enact it. I mean, that's a huge success in the first place. If anybody has ever participated in creating policy, 25 days is amazing. So then the next step was we had until February 1st of 2019, 1 year, to update the Nisqually watershed plan. And I don't know if anybody's been involved in updating any plan, let alone a watershed plan. It takes a lot of, collaboration. And our team said, here's the baseline. Luckily, Nisqually already had a plan in place. The items that needed to be discussed were in-stream flow and calculations and what are the impacts and how do we partner and who are the different partners. The Nisqually tribe was the lead on this conversation, but our team, and I'm going to ask him to stand, sorry, Kevin Hansen, right here in the back, go for it, or wave your hand, totally call, and Allison Osterberg, now with TRPC, wave your hand. They came to me and they said, here's what we have to do. We've got to do these couple of items to get us to the goal line. And with the constant understanding that our mission in CPED is service to citizens, so balancing the concept of environmental protection and ensuring that citizens could still build and utilize the water that they could get permitted for, and ensuring that the stream flow was restored as the legislation required. They got together, they created the timeline, all these plans. We used different calculations on in-stream flow, and we were able to submit the plan. Was it January 28th? It was due February 1st, and I believe we submitted it 2 days before the deadline to Ecology. Ecology received, nope, I'm getting a different look. Close enough? Okay. Within 2 to 3 days, Ecology received the plan. They approved the plan. The other plan that was submitted for watershed restoration, not in our county, in a county not to be named, they did not get to this deadline, this success. I really strongly believe that the good people involved in our Nisqually, not to say that the other one didn't have good people, but that within our group, we came together in a way that knew that we had to take action for our citizens, knew that we had to go forward on the legislation that was impacted our community, and for environmental protections. So those two things, the Hearst decision and the Stream Flow Restoration Act, that short-term immediate action and that longer-term goal, I can't be more proud of the organization that Thurston County has provided for our team to do good work, and then also for the leaders within it to make those decisions and lead from the front, as it were. I know I got kind of long-winded, but that's huge, and it's going to set the model for the other 4 watershed plans that happen within our community and then throughout the state. This hasn't been done before, and Thurston County was at the forefront of it. So if I seem a little bit over-exuberant about this topic, it's because I am. I think it's amazing.
So before anybody else begins, Josh, in case I missed it, will you explain what TRPC?
The Thurston Regional Planning Council, and the executive director is here also, Mark Daly. If you don't end up at Thurston County, seek out Mark Daly.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. Whoever wants it next, jump in, please.
Okay, I'll go next. I said earlier I was going to share a little bit more about our environmental health division and specifically our role in water quality. Josh just talked to you a little bit about water quantity, and we do have a really close relationship in how our departments work together, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. My disclaimer is I am not the subject matter expert. I have many amazing staff and team members. Our division director, Art Starry, is here up front to help answer any questions at the end of the panel that you may have as well. So just wanted to say that. Environmental health, and specifically clean and safe water, is absolutely essential. It's foundational. It impacts all of our lives, from infancy through the end of life, the water that we drink, the shellfish that we eat. I'm going to talk a little bit about that because that's one of our program successes that we want to share. And also it impacts our economy. So there's lots of really important things that we do. And when we're talking about water, sometimes people are surprised that we spend a lot of time talking about sewage. So those two things go hand in hand because the quality of our water is really impacted by a lot of factors. And one of the big factors is around sewage and how we handle it and sanitation. So I want to share a little bit about some of our programs that we offer around water quality before I dive in and answer Commissioner Hutchings' specific questions. I mentioned that we work with community planning and economic development and permitting on-site sewage systems, which we all often know that as septic tanks. We also do a lot of solid and hazardous waste prevention, monitoring, mitigation, enforcement, to make sure that things like toxic chemicals and trash and garbage and things like that don't get into our streams and our lakes and our marine waters. So we have staff that are working every day and responding to make sure that our water is safe from those types of things. We also mentioned drinking water earlier. We have a drinking water lab at Thurston County, and we test drinking water, we monitor drinking water, and we work with our partners at the state with large water systems, and we're responsible for helping to do that, and small water systems, as well as designating wells, which Josh referred to a little bit. And also water recreation. Many of us, especially warm days like today and coming up hopefully this summer, people in our community, our beautiful Pacific Northwest and here in Thurston County, we have so many opportunities for recreation. Kids want to go swimming at the lakes. You want to go down on the beaches. You want to sit outside and enjoy the bountiful shellfish that we have here. So those are all really important things that we do. And one of the programs that we're most proud of is around our work along with our partners in Henderson Inlet. So in 2001, and some of you may have read about this, the state monitors the quality of our bodies of water and does reports each year. And we help them in those efforts by doing a lot of monitoring and testing of different areas and sites throughout our county, and where our streams, flow into lakes and flow into places like Henderson Inlet. And so in 2001, there was a significant downgrade in the shellfish area of Henderson. And for those of you that don't know, that is, our shellfish industry here is very large. It's very important to our economy. And also from a public health standpoint, we want to make sure that our marine life are healthy and that the fish and the shellfish that we consume are healthy, because those go into our bodies and our kids' bodies. And so there was serious concerns. There were high levels of fecal coliform and other different water quality issues with Henderson. And so our department, I wasn't here then, so I can't take credit, but Art Starry sure was here back then, worked together with our state partners, community partners, Shellfish Protection District, and came together to say, what can we do to get ahead of this and ensure that Henderson Inlet could again be open for shellfish harvesting and be safe and clean and healthy. And so they came together, did some amazing work, conducted a shellfish response plan, instituted a septic monitoring and maintenance program. Lots of education and outreach. That's probably one of the most important things. One of the foundations of public health is prevention, and that starts with education and outreach and sharing information about how all of us have our role in helping to keep our waters clean and safe. So stormwater improvements, which Jennifer's going to talk a little bit about soon, sewer conversions, and really just coming together with all of our different funds. And resources. One of the challenges that we have is all of these different bodies of water are connected. We're all interconnected. Our environment is very interconnected. And so it's not just one county. Our water knows no boundaries. So we really rely on our partners for the kind of success we have. But after all of those efforts that happened over about a 10-year, close to about a 10-year time period, there was a net gain of 366 areas of commercial shellfish harvesting in Henderson Inlet, which was really amazing. It's one of the biggest successes in the entire state of Washington, one of the biggest areas of improvement that everybody's really proud of. And this happened even at a time when population went way up and development went up in those areas. And a big part of that was because of these joint efforts that we made. And that included inventorying all the septic systems in the areas around Henderson Inlet. And there's about 6,700 in that area. So that was a lot of work, and it still is. We still do this. 86% of those on-site sewage systems in Henderson are now current with their inspections and maintenance, and that's the highest level of participation that we have in the entire Puget Sound region. We also offered more than 2,000 people that live in that watershed area classes and about how they could inspect their own septic tanks. And also there were thousands of repairs, I think over 2,000 repairs that were made in that area that really contributed to the water. And We offered over 143 classes, I think, and we still offer those classes now. So we encourage anyone who really wants to make a big impact on improving water quality to enroll in one of those classes, and I'll have the chance to share more resources with you at the end.
My turn.
Jennifer, can I just interrupt? I love interrupting and being disruptive anyway. I was remiss when I started off this whole presentation by not introducing Ramiro Chavez, and he's in the audience, and he is our county manager. And he's been with the county a number of years, but he's been the county manager for just over 2 years. And he manages the entire county, over $300 million in budget, 1,100 employees, all the different departments. And he's got his fingers on every pulse in the county, which is just utterly amazing to me. He is a superhero, and he really is a superhero. And he's always available 24 hours a day, 8 days a week. I will text him whatever hour of the night, something pops into my head, and doggone, he answers. I go, why do you do that? So anyway, I want to honor and at least recognize him that he's here tonight. Thank you, Ramiro. Now, Jennifer, please,
Okay.
I threw you way off. You don't need the question again, do you?
No, I'll read the question again, though. It is, what is a program that has been implemented in your department that has made a significant impact on water quality, water quantity, and the way in which stormwater runoff is managed? And so I would answer that by saying that the development of our stormwater management program to meet the requirements of our permit has been what is significant. So we've built over, the capital projects anyways, have built over 50 major and then many more smaller minor improvements to reduce localized flooding, improve infiltration of stormwater, to improve the water quality, and then replenish our aquifers, and to reduce erosion systems. So what the whole program, the stormwater, and I'm still learning it. It came over into my group, but they're responsible for not only administering the drainage manual, but also promoting low impact development. So one of the groups that's within Public Works is development review. So when people come into the permit center and submit their plans, we have folks that review that stormwater permit and look for those opportunities to provide input on that. We also have a group of 10 folks that go out and do inspections and assessments around the county. We have another education and outreach group that's in Josh's department that go out and work with the community to learn how to locate their stormwater systems, how to clean their systems, how to take care of their ponds. And so the whole utility itself is making a difference on improving water quality and quantity.
Thank you. Next, what is a challenge that is impacting your department, not counting the Board of County Commissioners, in how you address water quantity, quality, and the way in which stormwater runoff is managed? What kind of is challenging to your department? We'll start with Jennifer. Thank you.
So the stormwater program that we have, I think, is very successful, and we've gotten a lot of support from the board and from the community. We have I think some of the challenges that we have are some of our older systems that are in place, that were put in place prior to the standards that are there now. And so we've got some challenges with how do we retrofit those? How do we take care of those systems that maybe we don't have the space to fix on site? So what are some of the projects that we have to put in place to fix those? So I would say it's the current standards are working well. The retrofitting of our older systems are a challenge in that older infrastructure.
We have lots of challenges when it comes to water quality. This is continuous monitoring and improvement and collective action that it takes. So, I mentioned the success in Henderson Inlet. There are many places throughout throughout our county and our region that we're working together with partners on, such as the tribes, for example. And it's water quality is ever changing. You know, we have to really, we have a lot of it, so there's a lot to monitor, and we have limited number of resources to be able to address every single pollution identification that we make. We try to correct that and invest in our education and prevention programs. We use a lot of data. It's very complex, but we're constantly looking at that and thinking, what can we do to improve the quality of this water? So we'll go out and do testing and look at the results. And we had a briefing just yesterday with our county commissioners, because this is something that's of great concern to them. And we were looking at maps and different streams and rivers and bodies of water in our surface water monitoring program that we're looking at that we have concerns in. And so many of the funds that we have to be able to monitor and make improvements in those areas are grant dependent. And so that can be really challenging when resources change. I also mentioned that while we have wonderful collaboration and relationships, that can be a real challenge too, to figure out who has kind of jurisdiction, what their role is, how does development play a role, how do our differing goals that we all have as a community, how do we just maintain and ensure that our water at all costs is protected. We also have some unique problems in our county when it comes to water, and I'll give one of those examples. As I mentioned, that we monitor lakes for recreation, and one of the things that you may have heard about is something called toxic algae. And every year, we respond to reports of toxic algae blooms. And we don't have the resources to continuously monitor every single lake that we have for toxic algae, but we really count on citizens like you and people in our community who live and recreate around different lakes to let us know at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services if you see an algae bloom, so we can go and test it. 2 years ago, we identified a lake in our community called Summit Lake that happens to also be a drinking water lake. That is unique. That is the only drinking water lake that we have in our community. But those that live around Summit Lake, they draw their water supply from the lake. And there is currently no filtration system that can remove one toxin called antitoxin A, which is really dangerous. People and pets can get very ill and even die from this. And one of the challenges that we have is being able to find solutions. And then a lot of people ask, well, why is this happening? Why do we have more toxic algae blooms at our lakes? Because it really interrupts people's lives. In that particular area, people can't use their water. They can't shower. They can't do their dishes. They can't bathe their babies. They can't drink from their tap when there's high levels of concern due to the toxic algae. In other areas, the lakes have to be closed for recreation, and we really worry about pets and kids touching the water. So we struggle with being able to monitor all those, but we do our best to get that information out with the public, and we really rely on you for that support. And the science on toxic algae blooms and why they produce antitoxin is really unknown to scientists yet. That's an emerging area of research. So if any of you are very interested in that, I would encourage you to look into it, because we could all certainly use your help as we evaluate why that happens and how we respond to it to protect all of our bodies of water.
Great. So I see the word challenge and I read opportunity. So we have lots of opportunities. within our group for lots of different items. I look back at the back of the room back there and I see our outreach group having the opportunity for our group out there, say, Amy, raise your hand. Amy, Anne Marie, and Kelsey. When you guys see things like Stream Team or any of the other items out there, the McLean Creek, those are the folks that are putting all that work together and trying to communicate that out into the public. It seems as simple as, little poop bags that you see everywhere so that your pet's poop isn't running into the stormwater. It seems silly, but it's important. And having that opportunity to connect those dots, that is what our outreach team does. I think, I've talked about the Hearst already. As much as we were able to do a great thing in creating this plan with the Nisqually, we still get the opportunity to implement it. And having those conversations going forward with the tribes and the other partners, we also have 4 other watersheds. The Deschutes, the Kennedy-Goldsboro, the Upper Chehalis, and the Lower Chehalis that all get to have plans written to do the stream flow restoration. So great opportunity there. And then I would say staffing. We've got this constant need to have folks that are engaged and energized and often on alert because the items that come at the staff and the commissioners so quickly and they're so diverse that at certain points it can become overwhelming. And so having opportunities for people to engage in a way that keeps the ball moving forward on the items that are affecting our county is extremely important. I had one more. Here's my last one. This is the big one, I think, too. Our group is made up of a whole bunch of folks that are really engaged and interested in planning. And as we have a change in our climate, planning for the uncertain is extremely difficult. It's one of those items that we don't know what the end is, and so it's hard to plan for, but we need to continue doing that hard work. So lots of opportunities.
So you hear there's a lot of challenges that these departments deal with. This is just 3 of the departments out of the county. There's internal and external threats, external being case law, legislation, the governor stating or calling for an emergency and such, and then internal threats because constituents will contact the commissioners, and we go to staff, give us information on this, and that might lead to a policy change. So there's all kinds of challenges that these folks at the county deal with all the time. For example, like I said, just 3 days ago, Governor Inslee declared an emergency, a drought emergency for just about 50% of the state. So now I'm going to move ahead and ask this question about stormwater, how stormwater is managed in Thurston County, and we're going to talk about LOT. Does anybody not know what LOT is? Okay, LOT is the Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston County treatment plant, and people on sewer, in fact, their motto is, you eat it, we treat it. And it's a pretty cool motto, in fact.
Is that really their motto?
No.
Okay.
Don't you know me? But they process the treatment for a good part of the county, at least all the urban areas. So here's the question. LOT is mainly a sewer treatment facility. There are some very old areas in downtown Olympia where the stormwater and sewer lines are the same, and they flow to the LOT for treatment. However, for the most part, in fact, this is it's a half a page of a question, so I'm going to ask you, will you explain how LOT interacts or comes into contact with your agency, your department, rather?
Sure. Actually, I think the question is how is stormwater managed in Thurston County, and does LOT treatment center process it? And the response to that would be no, it doesn't. And I would say that the county's storm management of our stormwater has evolved significantly since the creation of the utility in 1985. It initially was focused on addressing just localized flooding and getting the water off of the property as soon as possible. And now the goal is to treat and infiltrate on site. And release clean water. Some of the steps that we've taken in terms of managing stormwater are site planning and review, so promoting that low-income impact development when available. Our capital projects, so we have done quite a few, I mentioned earlier, retrofit projects. We're also starting to look at, and we'll be talking to the board about restoration projects. So we'll be having a briefing with them soon to talk about that. our continued inspection assessment and educating folks out in the community as to what they can do. And then operations and maintenance, so we're going out and cleaning those catch basins and doing vegetation management on those ponds and swales. And then illicit discharge and detection and elimination. So we have a hotline. It's 360-867-2099. So we ask people, if you see something out there, to call us and we can go out and take a look at that.
Okay, Shelley?
Yeah, so part of our role in stormwater is a little bit different, but we work really closely with both the stormwater group that Jennifer was just sharing and in community planning and economic development. And we're really focused from a public health perspective on ensuring that dangerous chemicals and toxins don't get dumped into our stormwater drainage system and then flow out into our inlets. So our solid and hazardous waste team has grant funding that goes out and helps businesses to evaluate how they are disposing of dangerous and toxic chemicals and materials and disposing of them safely. Our education and outreach team also educates the public on how all of us play a role in that, such as through our Grow Smart, Grow Safe program, which educates people on how you can select safe products, especially when you're gardening or maintaining your lawn, so that you're using things that are safe for our environment, and that's not seeping into the groundwater and then out into our lakes and streams and going down the drain. So when you wash your car, when you fertilize your lawn, so and also that pet waste, picking up pet waste so that doesn't get washed down into stormwater really has an impact as well. Another area that sometimes people don't connect with our water quality, and specifically around stormwater, are things like medications. So you've probably heard somewhat about the opioid crisis, which is one of our priority programs or issues, that we are working to address right now, and that includes the safe disposal of medications. Because a lot of times, people that have unwanted or unused medications will just flush those medications down the toilet, and then that goes down into our sewage or our sewers, our septic system, and then can get into the water. So this can also impact and get into our stormwater. And so you may have heard a report that Lot had a while ago that was discussing the number of opioids and pharmaceuticals in our water. So we're trying to get upstream from that, pun completely intended, to make sure that people are really being thoughtful about the chemicals, the products, the medications, the materials, the oil, all of those things that we use in our everyday lives, and making sure that is not getting down into the drains, and helping to provide education, especially to our businesses, to make sure that it's safe.
Good. Oops, sorry, I'm not supposed to touch the mic. So I've mentioned the outreach team already, so thank you, connecting the good information to our citizens. We also have the responsibility for the permit, the NPDES permit, the National Pollution Discharge, and we have Larry Schaffner in the audience. Larry, wave your hand. So we have, within the county facilities, we have a permit that allows us to have, cleaning our trucks and washing off all the equipment. And Larry makes sure that we're all doing it right, and that we're not putting a bunch of bad stuff down the drain, not just Thurston County, but in the area surrounding it. And so it's important that stormwater as a utility engages with all of the citizens that are using the system, but the Thurston County government operations also needs to ensure that we're doing it right and leading the way by example. So it's a lot, I think, again, in this coordination, when we talk about water and how I'm going to use a pun, it flows through all of our organizations. And we continue to have this like overlap that we're still trying to make sure that we're all clear on the responsibilities. But most importantly, it's that citizens are engaged in these topics, and that we're able to have this type of communication, I think, is really important.
Thank you. And if again, we're going to open it up now to questions from the audience, from students. But I just want to reiterate that if you have any desire in helping the county move forward and helping any of these departments, we have a list of these boards and councils and committees and advisory commissions, and some are specific to water. Water Conservancy Board, Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, and there's a few others on there that impact water quality as well. So I encourage you to do that. But now we're going to open up for questions of the audience. Use either microphone that's convenient for you. Just come on up and address a question, and we'll do the best we can and to answer that. And if the directors don't have it, we have, I guess, the subject matter experts that are available to answer questions for you. So, anybody, come on up, please. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Well, obviously, I'm not a student anymore,
Yeah.
but I guess I can talk.
Well, we don't judge.
Oh, okay. So I am alumni, however. So one of the things that I'm aware of is that how much stormwater flows into Capitol Lake. And I'm wondering what's being done about that.
I'm going to ask either Tim or Pat to provide some input on that, please.
I'm going to stand right up here and address your question.
So I'm sorry, Tim. Tim is the Water Resources Division Manager.
So the stormwater that runs into Capitol Lake is managed both by Thurston County and the city of Tumwater, which has stormwater systems that have outfalls into the Deschutes and into Capitol Lake as well. As Jennifer mentioned before, the county has a stormwater management program that is developed in conjunction and collaboration with community planning, Larry Schaffner's group. And as part of that, we ensure, first of all, that development is done correctly, that communities are sited appropriately, and the soils are evaluated, and that building is done correctly. Once development starts, we have construction inspection, so we have inspectors out ensuring that there's not construction runoff and silt getting into and sediment getting into the Deschutes, which would ultimately get into Capitol Lake. We also have an operation and maintenance program at Thurston County, as does the city of Tumwater, so that we are continually sweeping the streets, keeping those pollutants out of the stormwater system, so they don't end up in the water bodies. I-5 has its own stormwater program as well, and I can't really speak to that other than to say they are regulated similar to how the cities and the county are. Okay? Yep.
I'll add to that, excuse me, that I'm a member of the Capitol Lake Deschutes Estuary Executive Work Group that's looking at, it's a multi-year project, is Capitol Lake going to remain as it is, or an estuary, or a hybrid? And the next meeting is coming up next week, on the 31st. But they're looking at a lot of those things too, about the sediment and nutrients upstream, but not way upstream, just more locally. And so the representation on that committee involves Tumwater, Olympia, and Thurston County, and includes the Port of Olympia. And then there's some other subject matter experts on that panel as well, but looking at some of the same things as well. And where's the danger coming into the Capitol Lake?
As long as nobody else is up here, I'm going to ask one more question.
Certainly.
So I understand that the port, I guess I could be wrong about this, but they peel the logs down at the port along the water there in Bud Inlet, I guess.
Bud.
And that the bark and whatnot, detritus or whatever that goes into the water, causes low oxygen levels and pollutes that inlet. Why is the port allowed to do that?
Well, I guess in a word, none of us speak for the port. They have their own elected body, and I don't know if that's been questioned. I would imagine it's been questioned in the past, but I certainly can't answer that question for you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
So are any of you aware of that?
I think that's a great question, and so let me take that back and we can have a conversation. Thank you.
Okay,
Art,
thanks.
Art, do you have any comment on that question? Art Starry is our Environmental Health Division Director at Thurston
And
County
I'm afraid I
Public
don't have all the answers on that one either. I do know that there are a variety of issues that are kind of concerning management of stormwater at port facilities, the whole thing that Commissioner Hutchings and you mentioned earlier about low dissolved oxygen levels in Lower Bud Inlet, and I know the Department of Ecology. There's something on the Deschutes River. There's something called a total maximum daily load study, and there's been an upper portion, or basically the freshwater part of it, that's being done, and we're waiting for the EPA to actually approve it, but then there will be actions that are required by the county, the cities, basically all the community members within there to try to make improvements that'll affect things like water quality in Capitol Lake and ultimately have an impact on dissolved oxygen or nutrients that get into Bud Inlet, which would then affect dissolved oxygen levels. Currently, Department of Ecology is beginning work on the TMDL portion for the marine part of that, and I think that's where the impacts of the port and other marine water not users, but operations that affect marine water quality will be considered as well. So that's part of Ecology's mission, is to try to figure out that thing with the goal of trying to make sure that dissolved oxygen levels in the lower portion of Bud Inlet are appropriate, because there are times when it is very low and it is of concern, and the answers could range from impacting how Lots wastewater treatment plant permit is issued to whether what Commissioner Hutchings was talking about is Capitol Lake left an estuary or a lake or something else, as well as trying to deal with other impacts along the shoreline. So it's a really complex question. I'm not on that committee. I know a bit about it, and I believe that's probably where the impacts of the port and stormwater will be appropriate, or most appropriate to consider those. So I talked around it a bit, but that's the best I know.
Thank you. That was a very good question. Are you going to come down? Do you have a question, sir?
I do. I have a mic here.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to get off the stormwater and septic issues, which sound like they've been really covered well, thank you, and raise some questions about the groundwater status. Recently in the papers, I think, there's been information suggesting major risk in a lot of communities, particularly down in the Central Valley in California, for toxic chemical pollution. And those are probably farm chemicals. In this county, we have, I think, the lingering residual that maybe you could tell us a little about the current status of the chemical treatment plant that existed down on the port for years and years into the 80s that resulted in, I think, an environmental hazard that was a major site. And it's undergone some remediation, but I understand that's still ongoing or is incomplete. Maybe you could address that. The second one is a more recent issue that has been of concern around the country, and that is the potential major toxicity of firefighting foam when it's used in fires. And I'm wondering if you have any awareness of that here, whether that's a risk here, and what's being done to mitigate that risk.
Good questions, both of them. And before we get to the answer, because I know you folks have people that can answer that, perhaps, I would be remiss if I didn't explain to you or tell you, if you didn't know already, that we are honored to have Senator Karen Frazier here as well. So thank you, ma'am, for being here. I didn't see you, so I see you now, so thank you.
Okay, I'll be up with my question.
Okay. So who wants to take that on?
So that falls within public health domain. So I'm going to, again, call Art up because I know these are both issues that we have talked about quite frequently in environmental health.
So I'm Art Starry again. The first question I think has to do with maybe what was the old Cascade Pole site on the port property, and that was on the, I guess you'd call the Bud Bay side, or what would be the east side of the inlet, adjacent to the boat ramp. So if that's the property we're talking about, then that was something that was done, years and years ago, and then the property, they stopped operations, and then it became, it was originally called a Superfund site. In other words, it was so toxic that the EPA required that some sort of cleanup take place, and then Department of Ecology then took over responsibility for that. And so there were a lot of efforts done to manage the site. There was sediments were excavated out and taken out for disposal. There was a stem wall put around the property to keep water from migrating through it. There was cap put over the top, including asphalt parking lot to help keep water from running through it. And there's been toxics, or actually our department had a contractor or a consultant work on that to try to address public health risks, and then the Department of Health, along with actually a part of the Centers for Disease Control, did another risk assessment to try to evaluate what the risks were to people who might be recreating in the area, whether it was people wading along the shoreline or just going into the water, eating fish, those sorts of things. So those sorts of things were done, I want to say in the 90s, and then completed. There's still work that's being done. So that was the initial work that was done, and it's still going. The thing is still there. There's still a lot of toxic stuff buried there on the property, not buried, but in the sediments are still toxic, and so but they've been covered to try to manage the risk, and the experts at, again, something called is it ASTDR, ATS? Anyway, I can't keep the acronyms straight. I've got too many of them in my head. They looked at that, and along with our health officer and along with, again, a contractor or consultant, we looked at it and they said, okay, the normal sort of risk that you would have from getting in the sediments or along the shoreline there are very low. The risk of becoming ill from cancer, things are very low. So again, for the normal sort of work that people did. As a follow-up to that, there is actually a treatment plant there on the property. If you know where to look, you'll find that there's something called a pump and treat system. It pumps water out from under the port property, it treats it, and then the contaminated materials are taken elsewhere, and then it continues to do that to try to manage the risk. So that's an ongoing thing, but it's still there. The risk, there's the chance that if a really bad earthquake or something like that, it could cause the thing to breach, which would be of concern to all of us. One other thing that happened as a result of that, and I'll brag a little bit, is that there were concerns when the assessment was done by the CDC folks. There was a question about whether or not the contamination affected Priest Point Park and the sediments along there sufficiently to cause a public health risk. And so we were able to get grant funding, and actually our staff went out there and did a really good sediment sampling program. And the results of that were then given to the toxicologist at the State Department of Health. And it was reviewed by the folks at CDC, and they made the determination that, again, for normal sort of contact, the normal sort of things that you would do if you're taking your kids out there or you're out playing around in the water, that the risks are very low, and providing you take normal precautions like wash your hands and clean up when you're done. So kind of basic safety things would allow you to deal with that. So that's good news. It was the interesting story was they had to do it at low tides, which meant, and the project happened so that they were out sampling in October in the middle of the night during a heavy rainstorm, but they did it. So our staff are really proud that they survived, and we have good results. The second question was about
the firefighting foam, PFAS, yeah.
And so what's going on now is that the State Department of Health is conducting a study in association with Ecology and others to try to evaluate the groundwater risk for PFAS. They're actually doing some monitoring for public water supplies around the state. I don't know the results of that. And they're trying to establish what a standard is for drinking water for PFAS. And so that work is ongoing. It hasn't been done yet, but when you look at the different operations, the vulnerability of the water aquifer in Thurston County, you look at some of the activities that might result in that, whether it's firefighting practice or military operations or things, there may be some risks at Thurston County, and that's all being looked at. It is being looked at. We don't have the answers yet.
Thank you, Art. That's Art's story, and for about 8 to 12 years, he's been trying to retire, and we won't let him go. He's just far too much information, too much knowledge.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Cheryl King. I'm on the faculty here at Evergreen, and I just used my, I was going to say ballsiness to jump ahead of Karen, so thank you, Karen, for letting me do this. Kudos to your outreach efforts. I'm very aware of all that you guys do in terms of printed material, etc. I presume that this is an outreach effort, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little more about that, and what brought you here, and what are you thinking about in the future? You've talked a lot about the importance of bringing the information to the citizenry, and of course it's central when it comes to water, and maybe what you're thinking about how you're going to do that, etc. So thank you.
Good question.
Does anybody know what got us here? Or is that going to be Megan?
Well, I mean, we've got our reasons for being here, but I think
Yeah.
in the overall scope, we've got the county manager and the public information officer and the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, all very interested in making sure that we're connected as directors of our departments with the community. It can sometimes be, you know, you heard all about our different positions and divisions within our departments. We can sometimes get ourselves insular on the day-to-day in administrating the difficult tasks of doing the job. But being in the community is one of those things that is going to help our job as we are trying to succeed. And if we've got partners in the community, then we can do our job better. I think if the other folks have other answers, I think that's great, but I would be interested. Have we introduced Megan Porter?
No, we haven't. Would you come down to the microphone, please, Megan, and let us know what's in store, perhaps yet to come? If you haven't answered, you can think of it while you're coming up.
So Megan is, oh, sorry. Megan is our public information officer, and she's out in the community. Pretty much she tells us, you guys should go do this, and we say, yes, ma'am, we'll do that. Go for it, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. We're really excited to see people here. One of the main goals of our communications plan is getting your government to you. So this is one of those opportunities, is bringing the government out into the communities. I want to give a big shout out to the master's students that we worked with here. We were connected with Lauren Beam, Carl, how do you say his name? Yeah. Backen, and then Susan Bustetter, as she walks in. They were really looking for a way to move their capstone forward, in their focus was government coming out into the community. And we happen to be also doing that and trying to figure out ways to bring the government out into the community. And so we were able to get in touch with them. And so really big thank you to them for helping put this together. They've really done all the logistics and all of that. So thank you to the Evergreen Master students. So we're going to have more activities like this to come. This is our first actual panel coming out into a college or university. We will be looking at doing at least 2 a year for the next 2 years to see how it goes, and then expand that based on our results. And so that's another thing they're doing, is evaluating this project to give us some ideas on how to make it better. So once again, thank you. And then we're also taking the commissioners' meetings out into the community. We saw a really great response when we were in Rochester. So we're hoping that when we move to Yelm and to Nino, and then next year 3 other locations based on district, to just really get people a little bit more involved, understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and for them to provide us with their feedback as well. That's another reason why we brought the advisory boards and commissions information, so that we can get more people involved there.
And I think it's Susan's last day, too, right?
Susan?
It's my last day at Evergreen as a staff member, but I am continuing with my degree through August. Can I mention, though, there's a...
Do you need to be at the microphone, though, if you're going to talk? Not, I can hear you, but I don't know if anybody else needs to
I'm
be.
usually pretty loud. But I also just wanted to mention, I put the survey URL on the board. It's really important that we get some feedback from you, so that we know how to help Thurston County move these events forward and give them advice.
I'm gonna.
It's where?
It's the same as the paper we handed out.
It's not on the exit survey, though.
No, but it's the same survey.
Right, it's the same survey. We just, if you want to go home and fill it out, or don't want to do it right now, but it's kind of hard to read. It's surveymonkey.com/R/. Thurston, May 23rd. And we'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
And Senator, did you want to come up? And while you do that, I just wanted to just explain that this is not really Perrier, and I'll prove it because there's no fizz. I use the bottle because it's thick and it fits in my back pocket, and we do recycle. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Karen Fraser. I've already been introduced as retired state senator, but I'm also a former Thurston County commissioner, so I appreciate everything you all do. I've been active in the League of Women Voters since I've retired. I have comments on two things that came up, and then I have a question. So my comments are first on the pollution at the port for this huge project that Art Starry described. When I first moved here some decades ago, there was a plant there that put creosote on logs, so you could, I think, put the logs on, docks in the water or something like that. And it was just, everybody took it for granted, but we're still cleaning it up decades later.
That's a Cascade Pole?
Yeah, I think that was the name of it. And if you look at old pictures of the Port Peninsula, you'll see it. Big, long thing.
I remember seeing that.
Secondly, a question about stormwater runoff from the freeways, 101 and I-5 into Capitol Lake. When the League of Women Voters had its recent water forums, we did have somebody from Department of Transportation there, and they actually brought a map. There are 26 or so sort of discharges from those two highways into Deschutes and Capitol Lake, and only about half of them have anything done with them. So the other portions are just going straight into the lake. Some years ago, I took a walk down there during a rainstorm, and some of it's pretty substantial. So I encourage you to look into it. So my question, the governor just issued a drought declaration, and it includes about half of Thurston County and significantly the Deschutes River watershed. And a lot of us are wondering, well, what does that mean for our area to have a drought declaration? What's going to follow from this? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So yes, we have been monitoring that. Our water planning group relayed that we were headed towards potential drought conditions about 2 months ago, and we were able to provide that information to the commissioners so that we could have a heads up. I think it is important that the governor also just acknowledge that. We've been talking about the baseline within our group. We've been talking about getting a baseline of what the current water levels are and what that means. We're one of the only counties, in the Puget Sound area, people think of Mount Rainier as where we get a lot of our water. We are not glacial fed here in Thurston County, so we rely on our groundwater to be a part of that water availability as well as to impact the different drought conditions. So I like action, and so I write to my water planning staff, what can we do? What are we going to do about it? What can be done? Really, this is one of those planning for uncertainty as the climate's changing. And so our staff said it's essentially reducing our own water use, tree trimming, so trimming the trees around your location and clearing brush in case there is fire, watering your plants that are necessary and not your lawn if able. And then another hat that I wear is the fire marshal for Thurston County. And so we're continuing to look at how we communicate with our different fire districts and ORCA as well, the Olympic Region Clean Air Association Agency. Thank you. And this is a big topic, and we're working really hard to figure out what we can do. It's one of those things where we're impacted upon and still trying to find our way forward on it and open to suggestions.
Very good question. Are there any other questions from the audience? Because I want to just to answer to the outreach as Allison comes up. Next month, I am interviewing for Thurston Community Media, interviewing middle school students on what civility is. Not civility in politics, but civility. Doing the same with Evergreen State College MPA students, and be doing the same thing, the same questions with a member of the League of Women Voters, and with the YWCA and Community Youth Services, and see what kind of common theme and threads are and what kind of gaps are in civility or the lack of. So thank you for bringing that up. And the League of Women Voters did that water series, and I was able to attend only one because of my schedule down in Yelm, and it was utterly fascinating. So I thank the LWV for putting that all together. Allison.
Thank you all for being here. This is a little bit of a self-serving question. And I think Josh covered this pretty well in the last question, but what challenges, or as they are opportunities, for each of your departments do you see related to climate change and the challenges associated from drought and increased storm issues and sea level rise and heat and temperature, whether we're talking about public health or public works or our built environment? How do you see that affecting your program, some of the programs that you've outlined? And what we know that although government can't provide all the solutions to these issues, we as a community have to respond collectively. What role do you see each of your departments playing in being able to address some of those opportunities?
Thank you, Allison Osterberg. Are there any other questions? Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left, so go ahead and you got to bang out the answer as quick as you can for that complex question.
Jennifer, do you want to
Well, I think that one of the things that we're looking at when I talked about kind of the evolution of our stormwater program is moving more towards restoration or incorporating restoration into our capital projects. I do think that in part will help with slowing the water down as it's coming through, infiltrating through, and before it gets into the lakes and building up the appropriate vegetation along the stream banks. I thought will help with the quantity of water and slowing it so that it's filling the lakes or the streams when during the summer months. So I see that. I see us partnering and looking for opportunities for our transportation projects now that we have stormwater as well. And what do we do to do education with our parks? We're doing something similar to that, I think, down in Rochester with the Albany Pond. So it's more than just a pond, but talking about it, I think the awareness is a big piece.
Do we go? Thank you for that question, Allison Osterberg, former Thurston County Community Planning employee. One of the things that I think is important to recognize is that our county commissioners have been ahead of the curve in making sure that we're partnering with organizations that are working on not only climate adaptation, but also climate mitigation plans. And here I'd give a plug to the Thurston Regional Planning Council for the hard work that they've been doing with the community and bringing folks together and looking at strategies to address these topics. We have our comprehensive plan update coming up. I would suggest and request that folks get engaged in that. We've made sure that we've worked to address, at least leave the opportunity to address with action these topics within our comprehensive plan. I would defer to either, I would say, Caitlin McIntyre in the back or former staff member Allison Osterberg to provide any more information on that topic if you'd like. No?
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, that... Shelley, did you have anything
I'll just
for
add
that
a
or
little
no?
bit because you mentioned the public health impact. And so we at our department have been participating in climate mitigation planning and representing Thurston County on that committee. So that's been Chris Hawkins, one of our program managers, has been participating in that effort. Sorry,
that was huge.
Okay. Yes. So, so one of the other things that we think about goes above and beyond water. I mean, we're looking at total health and the impact of climate change on health. And this is a big topic for our department, as well as our partners at Department of Health and the CDC and others, in looking at what kind of health impacts are we facing and do we need to plan for. And so our public health emergency preparedness team is factoring that in. We are looking at the health impacts on the citizens in our community. We also have, through our collective impact public health initiative, Thurston Thrives, we have our environmental health action team and our climate and clean energy team that have been working together to address this issue and make plans. So it's definitely something that we are factoring in, that we are looking at, and it's a really important topic.
I also might jump back also. The Board of County Commissioners created a strategic plan over the last year, and initiative number 7, I'm just going to read it, is to balance development with preservation of the county's rural character, natural areas, and open spaces. And within strategic initiative number 7, that is a focus on addressing issues related to the change in climate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, staff. As we close, I want to just let you know the county's website for more information about the county and ways to apply for jobs or get involved or more dig specifically into their departments. County website is www.thurstoncountywa.gov, G-O-V. And do directors want to give out your email address? I know you do.
Go for it.
Jennifer2ns.walker@co.wa.thurston.law.
I'll just try to make it a little simpler and just say go to the Thurston County website and click on Public Health and visit our page. We have lots of information, some of which I shared with you today, including our social media. So you can follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter, and you can also sign up if you're interested in our toxic algae blooms, sign up for our e-newsletter. You can also call our a hotline for biotoxin closures. So that is in reference to the toxic algae in the lakes that I was referring to earlier, 1-800-562-5632. On our website, you can also find links to our shellfish harvest safety map and our statewide recreational beach advisories, as well as we keep that up to date for any other public health advisories. And there is information about how you can volunteer and get involved in lots of different programs, everything from helping to monitor for toxic algae or work with our Medical Reserve Corps that responds to emergencies or help us do public health education and outreach. There's lots of great opportunities, and we are here for you if you have any questions. A lot of people may not know that at Public Health we are on call 24/7 behind the scenes, ready to respond and answer any questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much for doing that. Go ahead, Josh. Yeah, go ahead.
My email address is joshua.cummings@co.thurston.wa.us. Also, if you wanted to come down at some point and write your name and contact information, if you're interested, again, I'm going to bookend it. We are always looking for smart, dedicated people who want to change the world. And if you're interested in working hard and engaging in that, CPED and Thurston County and Public Health and Public Works are the place to be.
So thank you, Senator Fraser, for coming tonight and attending. County Manager Chavez, thank you. Executive Director of TRPC, Mark Daly, thank you. Thank all of our directors and staff and students. Thank you very, very much for coming tonight. Hope it was informative and hope to see you again next time. We're done. Thank you.